Did the Buddha oppose Avesta or Brahmanism? The conquest by Darius introduced the Persians' new religion. The dates of Darius's conquest of Gandhāra and Sindh 517 BC, and the late 4th century reformed Mazdaism, or Early Zoroastrianism, a strongly monotheistic faith with a creator god, Ahura Mazda, and with ideas of absolute truth Avesta, Old Persian arta versus the druj, and of an accumulation of good and bad deeds, that is, karma, which determined whether a person would be rewarded by rebirth in heaven. These ideas are all found in the Gāthās, the oldest part of the Avesta, which are attributed to Zoroaster himself, and all are expressed openly and repeatedly in the Old Persian royal inscriptions as well. Essentially the same ideas occur in the major inscriptions of the Mauryas in the 3rd century BC in India. The traditional view is that the Buddha reinterpreted existing Indian ideas found in the Upanishads, but the Upanishads in question cannot be dated to a period earlier than the Buddha. Just as early Buddhism cannot be expected to be similar to the normative Buddhism of a half-millennium or more later, so early Brahmanism cannot be expected to be similar to late Brahmanism, not to speak of Hinduism, attested even later. Zoroaster was the first to teach the doctrines of heaven and hell, the future resurrection of the body and life everlasting for the reunited soul and body, and early Zoroastrianism was the faith of the ruling nation of the Persian Empire. Both early Buddhism and early Brahmanism are the direct outcome of the introduction of Zoroastrianism into Eastern Gandhāra by Darius. Early Buddhism resulted from the Buddha's rejection of the basic principles of early Zoroastrianism, while early Brahmanism, today's Hindu and Vedic Dharma, represent the acceptance of those principles. Over time, Buddhism would accept more and more of the rejected principles. Not surprisingly, the ordinary generic human contrast between truth and falsehood is found in those days. The specifically early Zoroastrian form of the ideas, including the result of following one or the other path, is completely alien to them. In the early Vedic religion, ritually correct performance of blood sacrifices was believed to be rewarded in this life. But the reward had nothing to do with one's virtuous actions or one's future in the afterlife. These ideas thus seem to have been introduced by the Achaemenid Persians into Eastern Gandhāra and Sindh, the western limits of the ancient Indic world and southeastern limits of the Central Asian world, just as they were introduced into Near Eastern parts of the vast Persian Empire. These specific absolutist or perfectionist ideas are firmly rejected by the Buddha in his earliest attested teachings. In short, the Buddha reacted primarily not against Brahmanism, but against early Zoroastrianism. At the lower end of the chronological scale, the Buddha must have lived before the visit of the two best-known and attested Greek visitors of the late 4th century, Pyrrho of Elis, who was in Bactria, Gandhāra, and Sindh from 330 to 325 BC with Alexander the Great, and learned an early form of Buddhism there, and 2 decades later the ambassador Megasthenes, who traveled from Alexandria in Iraq-Asia, now Kandahar, to Gandhāra and Magadha in 305 BC and recorded his observations on Indian beliefs, including early Buddhism and early Brahmanism, in his Indica. The shock of the introduction of new, alien religious ideas in the traditionally non-Persian, non-Zoroastrian environment of Central Asia, Eastern Gandhāra, and Sindh must have happened fairly soon after Darius's conquest and the establishment of his satrapies, when the satraps were undoubtedly still ethnically Persian and strongly Zoroastrian, and would have needed the ministrations of their priests. That would place the most likely time for the Buddha's period of asceticism and enlightenment within the first 50 years or so of Persian rule. meaning ca. 515 to ca. 465 BC, and his death after another 40 years or so, following the dubious tradition that he lived 80 years 40, making the latest date for his death ca. 425 BC. This chronology would also leave enough time for early Buddhism to spread from Magadha, the region where Sambodhi, or Bodh Gaya, is located, assuming it was first preached there by the Buddha, northwestward into western Gandhāra, Bactria, and beyond, and, for his name Gautama and some of his ideas and practices, to travel all the way